Introduction. Progress, by definition, signifies the expansion of accepted frameworks, but going beyond well-defined borders always provokes more or less sectarian objections, be they from science or religion or merely routine. There are always two opposing camps. One is the domain of belief, the other is the faction of those who consider themselves in the know. Whoever situates himself between these two extremes cannot be classified. And the effect of this position is to raise doubts as well as to incite the hostility of the two opposing camps. Sometimes, however, there is an explosion that shatters the limits, breaking the quietude of a routine one likes to call peace. Our century has experienced such an upheaval. I am referring, of course, to the atomic explosion, not to the bomb itself, but far more important, to the disturbance it brought, which reversed the orientation of our mentality. With Lavoisier, the past century also experienced such an explosion of the framework of thinking. At that time, all the conjectures of a creation mystique, considered as fanciful, were rejected, giving to those who presumed to know a solid terrain for constructing a world according to their image. Nowadays, that terrain no longer seems as stable as had been expected. Those who consider themselves in the know are already beginning to lose footing, but this does not suffice to give strength to those who believe. There is today a generalized sense of uncertainty, causing disorder in the social domain as well as in moral conduct generally. But the majority of people endure this effect without understanding its origin. Far more important to people's lives than economic or technical considerations is that state of mind, that mentality which can be inspired only by a higher authority, independent of the passion-ridden influence of the majority. But nowadays the world is governed by fictions of social doctrines, of scientific promises. And these fallacious promises are based on erudite arguments whose vicious circle is no longer noticed. Actually, the social order must bow to the techniques generated by science, and science in turn must constantly adapt to a social order whose stability is compromised by the uncoordinated passions of the human being. The discovery and demonstration of energy as a kinetic phenomenon of mass does not explain the mass, which becomes an unknown. This formula amounts to saying that if I throw a stone, that stone, the mass in motion, represents energy. The extreme speed squared is then the stable element for all energy. The mass, the weight of the stone, stays variable. The speed of light squared is the great discovery in this Einsteinian formula. It is a practical tool that permits one to make do, but yields no essential information. Yet it opens the doors to all the discoveries in nuclear energy. Now our little world thinks only in terms of atomic energy, referring to it all physical, chemical, and astrophysical phenomena. Among those who have thus been led astray, the so-called alchemists of our time are of particular interest to us. They belong neither to the physicists nor to the dreaded mystics of pre-Lavoisier times, as they imagine they can identify atomic energy with spirit, the origin of matter. May these few seekers understand that they must not allow themselves to be deluded by a rational science which is leading the world to disaster. As they willingly let themselves be called utopians, they might as well accept the principle of a sacred science that testifies to a divine science. What proofs are there of this sacred science? Simple logic, no less, tells us that the material world, the world of the notorious mass, cannot have been created with matter. It is only after having studied most of the serious works on this strange subject, from Zosima to the latest writings which date back about a century, that I place sacred text and myth in parallel to the development of what is called the Hermetic opus. Whatever the images in terms of the sacred accounts, be they the Vedas, the Nordic sagas, the texts of ancient Egypt, the Old Testament, or the revelations of the Gospels, there exists an undeniable parallelism between these two expressions of a knowledge concerning the origin, the becoming, and the aim of life. The question is, what object could be the aim of the Hermetic opus? It will necessarily be an undetermined substance and not a mineral, plant, or animal being. This substance can be none but the vital fire, life capable of being transmitted to a specific being in order to lead that being to its own perfection. This indeed is what all good texts intimate. Because of its parallelism with the ultimate becoming of the human, this available life essence is called the king, cosmic man. But it must be recognized that attaining the aim of the Hermetic opus is not an end. It is the beginning of the light that illuminates reality. It would be a serious error, I am convinced, to fail to reverse the problem. Granted that the Hermetic opus elucidates and demonstrates the meaning of sacred texts and myths, it is evident that what is somehow of prime importance is the harmonization of the book of Genesis Revelation. Man as a thinking, conscious being is the only important reality. It is he, the human being, as bodily creature, animated by the divine breath, absolute being, who endures the entire passion of the Hermetic opus, in order to attain, if possible, to the royal perfection, represented by the renowned Philosopher's Stone. Attempting to understanding the significance of sacred science in its mere material representation distorts the intention of the sages. I am certain, moreover, that such comprehension is fated never to attain the aim proposed, be it in one sense or the other. The natures are the cosmic milieu, and it is the successive states of conscious vision of these principles that give true meaning to human life. The king, the true king, is the living being who has reached the stage of immortal and conscious return to the source of the soul that animates him. Such is the aim proposed. Sacred science demonstrates and proves, but the spiritual ascent of man is the path to be realized.